There are few pieces of advice repeated as often in modern life as the phrase, "follow your passion." It sounds generous, inspiring, even wise. It suggests that somewhere inside each person there is a hidden calling waiting to be discovered, and that once it is found, work will become naturally meaningful, energizing, and fulfilling. For many people, this idea becomes the invisible standard by which they judge their careers. If work feels difficult, uncertain, tedious, or ordinary, they assume something must be wrong. Maybe this is not the right field. Maybe the real passion has not yet been found. Maybe the answer lies somewhere else. Cal Newport begins so good they can't ignore you by challenging this belief at its root. He does not do so cynically. He does not argue that meaningful work is impossible or that people should abandon the hope of loving what they do. Instead, he argues that the passion hypothesis, the belief that fulfillment comes from first identifying a pre-existing passion and then matching your job to it, is often poor advice. It can create confusion instead of clarity. It can turn people inward when they need to build outward. It can make them overly focused on whether a job feels right instead of whether they are becoming valuable. Newport's alternative is more demanding, but also more stable. He argues that compelling careers are usually not found. They are built. They emerge from the development of rare and valuable skills, from the cultivation of mastery, from increasing control over one's work, and from the eventual ability to direct that skill toward something meaningful. This is a very different vision of career happiness. It says, in effect, stop waiting for the perfect fit to appear and start becoming someone whose work creates opportunities. In this summary, we will walk through that vision slowly. We will explore why Newport believes passion is overrated at the beginning, why skill matters so much more, how career capital changes what is possible, why autonomy and mission matter, and what all of this means for anyone trying to build a life around work that feels worthwhile. One of the boldest things Newport does in this book is question an idea that many people treat as almost sacred. The passion hypothesis tells us that the key to loving your work is to first find the thing you are passionate about and then pursue it professionally. At first glance, this seems harmless, even uplifting. But Newport argues that it often causes more anxiety than insight. Why? Because many people do not have a single clear passion that can be translated neatly into a career. And even when they do have strong interests, those interests do not always map onto a viable or sustainable form of work. The problem is not that passion is useless. The problem is that people are taught to treat it as the foundation, when in reality it is often the result. When passion is treated as a starting point, people begin examining every job with an impatient question: is this my true calling? If the answer does not feel obvious, dissatisfaction grows. They become restless, self-conscious, and perpetually uncertain. Newport sees this as a trap. It encourages people to search emotionally before they have built anything substantial. It also creates an unrealistic expectation that the right work should feel naturally aligned from the beginning. But most valuable careers do not feel magical at first. They involve confusion, apprenticeship, repetition, and gradual growth. Newport's critique is therefore not anti-meaning. It is anti-naivete. He wants readers to understand that many people end up loving what they do not because they found it through some inner revelation, but because they became good at it, gained confidence, earned autonomy, and learned to see deeper purpose in their contribution. This reversal is one of the book's most important moves. It tells the listener that passion may not be the spark that starts the fire. It may be the warmth that appears after the fire has been built. If the passion mindset asks, "What can the world offer me?" Newport proposes something he calls the Craftsman Mindset. This mindset asks a harder and more useful question: what can I offer the world that is valuable? That shift may sound small, but it changes almost everything. The passion mindset is preoccupied with feeling. Am I inspired? Is this role aligned with who I am? Does this work reflect my deepest interests? The craftsman mindset turns outward toward contribution, skill, and quality. It asks whether you are getting better, whether your work matters to others, whether you are producing something with care, and whether your value is increasing. Newport argues that the craftsman mindset is powerful because it puts attention on the factor you can control most directly, your ability. Feelings are unstable. Markets change. Interests evolve. But the discipline of becoming better at something creates a concrete path forward. The craftsman mindset also protects against a modern tendency to judge jobs too early. Many careers become rewarding not because they begin with deep excitement, but because the person involved keeps improving, deepens their understanding, and earns more trust and opportunity over time. This is true in many fields. A writer learns to write better. A teacher learns to teach with more range and impact. A designer develops taste and fluency. A programmer builds sharper judgment. A consultant learns how to solve harder problems. In each case, the work becomes more engaging as capability grows. The craftsman mindset helps explain why. The growing sense of competence changes the experience of the work itself. There is also something psychologically stabilizing about this approach. When people focus mainly on whether a job is giving them enough, they can become chronically dissatisfied. But when they focus on what they are building, they become more active and less fragile. They start seeing progress instead of only absence. Newport is not saying people should tolerate work that is destructive or meaningless forever. He is saying that one of the surest ways to create a compelling career is to become exceptional in a way that cannot be easily ignored. The craftsman mindset is the discipline that makes that possible. The book's title comes from a line associated with Steve Martin, and Newport uses it to distill his entire argument into one unforgettable instruction: be so good they can't ignore you. This is not just a slogan about ambition. It is a practical principle about leverage. In Newport's view, the world rewards people who develop rare and valuable skills. Not instantly, not perfectly, and not always fairly, but often enough that the principle matters. If you become genuinely excellent at something useful, options begin to open. You gain credibility. You attract opportunities. You become harder to overlook. The phrase itself is helpful because it redirects ambition away from image and toward substance. Many people want recognition before mastery. They want freedom before value. They want fulfillment before competence. Newport asks readers to reverse that order. First become good. Then let the consequences follow. This matters because modern career culture often emphasizes self-expression and branding more than disciplined excellence. Newport is skeptical of that imbalance. He believes that a remarkable career is more often built from quietly accumulated skill than from declarations of intention. Becoming so good you can't be ignored requires patience, because excellence is rarely visible in the beginning. There may be long stretches of effort without obvious reward. There may be repetition, feedback, discomfort, and uncertainty. But Newport's point is that this process is not a detour from meaningful work. It is the route to it. When skill deepens, confidence deepens. When confidence deepens, freedom becomes more attainable. And when freedom increases, the work can be shaped in more personal and meaningful ways. The title therefore points to a deep truth. The most reliable path to career satisfaction is not endless introspection about what you feel like doing. It is the hard, often quiet labor of becoming undeniably capable. Once that capability exists, the world begins to respond differently. One of Newport's most useful ideas is the concept of career capital. Career capital is the collection of rare and valuable skills you build over time. It is what you accumulate when you become good at difficult things that other people find useful. The reason this idea matters so much is that it explains how people earn the right to create better work conditions. Many people want autonomy, flexibility, creativity, influence, or meaning. Newport does not deny the importance of those desires. But he argues that these rewards are rarely handed out for free. They are bought with career capital. In other words, you gain more control and more opportunity when you have something valuable to offer in exchange. This is one of the book's clearest corrective lessons. It tells the listener that wanting a better career is not enough. Wanting more freedom is not enough. The key question is whether you have built enough capital to command those benefits. This applies across many domains. A highly skilled employee may be able to negotiate remote work, flexible hours, or a larger role. A respected freelancer can choose better clients. A proven entrepreneur can shape the culture of their work more deliberately. A leading expert can pursue projects that matter to them more deeply. In each case, freedom is not random. It is purchased with value. The phrase career capital is also helpful because it makes growth feel cumulative. It suggests that even if a current role is not ideal, the effort invested there may still be building assets for the future. Learning to solve hard problems, communicate clearly, manage complexity, and produce excellent work may not feel glamorous every day, but it increases your professional leverage. Newport's deeper message is that careers improve when people stop asking only what feels fulfilling now and start building the capital that will make future fulfillment possible. That shift turns work from a passive experience into an investment in capability. If career capital is what you need, the next question becomes obvious. How do you build it? Newport's answer is deliberate practice. This is one of the book's most demanding ideas because it reminds us that simply showing up to work is not the same as improving in a meaningful way. Deliberate practice involves pushing beyond comfortable performance. It means identifying where you are weak, working at the edge of your ability, seeking honest feedback, and repeating difficult efforts until real improvement takes place. This is how musicians become exceptional, how athletes sharpen skill, how writers refine craft, and how professionals in many fields separate themselves from those who are merely experienced. Newport wants readers to see that mastery is not passive. Time alone does not guarantee excellence. Repetition alone does not guarantee growth. The key is stretch. The key is discomfort in service of development. This matters because many people underestimate how much intentional training is required to become rare and valuable. They assume improvement will come naturally if they stay busy. But busyness can hide stagnation. Deliberate practice asks more. It requires concentration, humility, and patience. It can be frustrating because it exposes limitation. Yet that is precisely why it works. It brings a person into direct contact with the gap between current performance and higher capability. Newport includes this idea because his whole career philosophy depends on it. If meaningful work grows out of mastery, then mastery must be actively built. The listener can hear here a larger life lesson too. Anything worthwhile tends to demand focused practice. The discomfort of development is often the price of later freedom. Deliberate practice is not glamorous, but it is one of the engines that turns ordinary work into remarkable opportunity. Newport argues that one of the strongest predictors of loving your work is autonomy. People are more satisfied when they have more control over what they do, how they do it, when they do it, and which opportunities they choose to pursue. This may sound obvious, but Newport adds an important caution. Autonomy is deeply attractive, and, because of that, people often reach for it too soon. They want to escape structure, leave organizations, start something of their own, or redesign their working life before they have built the career capital necessary to support such moves. This is where his framework becomes especially practical. He does not say autonomy is overrated. He says it must be earned. The market tends to reward autonomy when someone has become valuable enough that their independence is justified. If you are highly skilled, hard to replace, and trusted, you have leverage. If you are still early, inconsistent, or undifferentiated, autonomy may be harder to sustain. Newport sees many career mistakes arising from this mismatch. People crave freedom, which is understandable, but they try to buy it with enthusiasm instead of capital. The result can be disappointment, instability, or retreat. His lesson is more strategic. Build something first. Become someone whose work matters. Then use that strength to shape your life more deliberately. This perspective is reassuring because it makes autonomy feel attainable without making it feel easy. It also reminds listeners that freedom at work is not just a personality preference. It is often one of the rewards of becoming deeply useful. That is why the book consistently returns to skill. Skill is what creates options. And options are what make autonomy more than a fantasy. Newport also explores a tension around autonomy that makes his argument more nuanced. On one side, people often try to gain control before they have earned it. On the other side, once people do have enough career capital to seek more control, fear can stop them. He describes this tension as a kind of control trap. The market may resist giving freedom to those who have not yet built enough value. But it may also resist giving up highly valuable people, which means that once you have become important, asking for more control can still feel risky. This is where courage enters the picture. Building career capital is not enough by itself. At some point, it must be used. A person has to negotiate, step into a more independent role, redesign responsibilities, or move toward work that better reflects what they have earned. That is a different challenge from mastering skills, but it depends on the same seriousness of thought. Newport's point is that compelling careers are built through both patience and strategic boldness. Patience in the accumulation of value. Boldness in claiming the rewards that value makes possible. This matters because some listeners may hear the earlier parts of the book and think the message is simply to stay put and work hard forever. But that is not Newport's view. He wants people to grow into greater control. He just wants them to do so from a position of strength rather than fantasy. The deeper lesson here is that career fulfillment is not created by wishful thinking. It is created when competence and courage meet. You become valuable, and then you act on that value in a way that gives your working life more freedom and alignment. After skill and autonomy, Newport turns to another important ingredient in meaningful work: mission. A mission is a unifying focus, a sense that your efforts are pointed towards something worthwhile and coherent. It is not just about being competent. It is about using competence in service of an idea, problem, or contribution that feels significant. This part of the book helps explain why skill alone is not the full answer. A person may become highly capable and still feel somewhat empty if that capability is not attached to a larger direction. Mission gives work narrative weight. It helps a person feel that they are building towards something that matters. But here again, Newport reverses the usual order. He argues that mission is often difficult to identify or pursue before you have developed enough expertise. The reason is simple. Important missions tend to live near the frontier of a field, where deeper knowledge reveals interesting opportunities. If you remain a novice, you may not yet be able to see what is worth pursuing in a serious way. As skill deepens, your view expands. You begin noticing problems others miss, patterns others overlook, and possibilities that only competence makes visible. In this sense, mission is not always discovered in advance. It often emerges from mastery. This is a powerful idea because it prevents people from waiting passively for purpose. It suggests that purpose becomes clearer as you become more capable. Work that once seemed ordinary may reveal deeper significance when you understand it better. Or your growing skills may allow you to move toward a problem that genuinely matters to you. Either way, Newport's framework remains consistent. Build value first. Then use that value to shape work that feels purposeful. Mission is not the rejection of skill. It is the meaningful direction of skill. Newport's approach to mission is not rigid. He does not suggest that people must wait for total certainty before moving toward more meaningful work. Instead, he favors a process of small bets. This means trying modest experiments, exploring new directions in manageable ways, and learning from real-world feedback rather than abstract fantasizing. The idea of small bets is practical because missions are rarely understood fully in theory. People often discover what matters to them by testing possibilities. They write, teach, launch side projects, volunteer, build prototypes, contribute to communities, or experiment within their existing roles. These small steps generate information. They reveal what is energizing, where ability aligns with opportunity, and whether a potential path has depth. This approach fits Newport's worldview perfectly. Instead of demanding that the future be known in advance, he encourages evidence-based exploration. Small bets are especially useful because they reduce the cost of uncertainty. You do not need to blow up your life to learn. You can experiment from where you are. Over time, these experiments can deepen into clearer direction. This is a reassuring lesson because it gives listeners a way to move forward without pretending to have perfect vision. Build skill. Stay observant. Test ideas in small ways. Let feedback guide refinement. Meaningful work can be crafted through this steady combination of competence and experimentation. One of the deeper currents running through So Good They Can't Ignore You is its challenge to the modern habit of tying identity too tightly to immediate career feeling. Many people want work to serve as a direct expression of who they are, and while that desire is understandable, Newport suggests it can become destabilizing when pursued too early. If every role is measured by whether it instantly reflects your deepest self, then ordinary development can feel like failure. Apprenticeship feels disappointing. Repetition feels empty. Difficulty feels like a sign that you are on the wrong path. Newport offers a more mature alternative. Identity at work does not always precede effort. Sometimes it emerges through effort. You become someone by practicing, improving, contributing, and earning trust over time. This has a humbling effect, but also a liberating one. It means you do not need total self-knowledge before beginning serious work. You can grow into a professional identity. You can discover new capacities by committing deeply. You can become attached to work because you have invested in it, shaped it, and grown within it. This idea also protects against the constant comparison that modern career culture encourages. When people are always looking sideways, wondering whether others have found a more authentic path, they can become less committed to building one of their own. Newport calls them back to process. Become excellent. Create value. Let depth replace restlessness. Over time, that steadiness often produces a stronger sense of self than anxious searching ever could. In this way, the book becomes about more than career tactics. It becomes a philosophy of development. It says that meaningful work is not merely chosen. It is often earned through the kind of sustained seriousness that changes the person doing the work. When the ideas of this book are translated into practical action, the message becomes surprisingly clear. First, stop relying on passion as your opening strategy. Do not wait for perfect certainty before committing to growth. Second, adopt the craftsman mindset by asking what value you can create instead of what emotional reassurance a job can offer you right now. Third, identify the skills in your field that are rare, difficult, and genuinely valuable, then practice them with unusual seriousness. Fourth, treat these skills as career capital. Understand that freedom, flexibility, and influence are usually earned through value, not granted through hope. Fifth, when enough capital has been built, begin using it to gain more control over your work. Negotiate better conditions, redesign your role, pursue stronger opportunities, or move closer to the kind of work structure that fits you best. Sixth, develop a mission by combining your growing mastery with problems or purposes that matter. And finally, do not rely only on abstract planning. Use small bets. Experiment. Test directions in manageable ways. Learn from reality. These lessons are powerful because they give listeners something firmer than inspiration. They offer a sequence. They say meaningful work is not random. It has a pattern. The pattern begins with becoming good, then becoming valuable, then becoming free enough to direct that value toward what matters. That is a far more solid approach than the fragile hope that the perfect job will appear if you search hard enough for your passion. In today's world, Newport's argument may matter even more because career advice is so often flooded with vague encouragement. People are told to do what they love, to trust their instincts, to chase fulfillment, to build a brand, to escape traditional structures, and to reinvent constantly. Some of this advice contains insight, but much of it lacks sequence. It celebrates outcomes without explaining the foundation beneath them. Newport restores that foundation. In a modern career, following his framework might mean spending several years becoming excellent at a difficult craft before asking for more flexibility. It might mean using your current job as a place to build competence rather than merely as a test of emotional fit. It might mean identifying the few skills in your field that create disproportionate value and practicing them deliberately. It might mean saying no to endless distraction so that your work becomes deeper and harder to ignore. It could also mean being patient when your career looks ordinary from the outside, because you understand that capital is accumulating beneath the surface. For creative professionals, this may mean building a body of work before expecting recognition. For knowledge workers, it may mean becoming known for clarity, reliability, or deep problem-solving. For entrepreneurs, it may mean developing genuine expertise before seeking independence. In every case, the principle holds. What becomes compelling later is often built quietly first. Newport's work is helpful because it respects ambition while refusing fantasy. It tells people that meaningful work is possible, but it also tells them that the route usually runs through disciplined improvement rather than premature self-discovery. So Good They Can't Ignore You leaves the listener with a message that is both challenging and reassuring. It is challenging because it asks for more discipline than the usual passion-first advice. It asks you to stop waiting for a feeling to guide everything and to begin building value instead. It asks you to accept that mastery can be slow, that freedom often comes later, and that meaning is frequently constructed rather than found. But it is also reassuring because it places career fulfillment back within reach of deliberate effort. You do not need a lightning bolt revelation to begin. You do not need to know your perfect calling in advance. You do not need to panic when work feels difficult or unclear. What you need is seriousness, patience, and a willingness to get better. Newport's deepest contribution may be this: he gives people a way to replace anxiety with craftsmanship. Instead of endlessly asking whether this job is your passion, you can ask whether you are building rare and valuable skills. Instead of obsessing over whether the path feels perfectly aligned, you can ask whether you are becoming more capable, more useful, and more free. Over time, those questions create stronger careers and steadier lives. The book's promise is not instant certainty. It is something more durable. If you build skill, create value, and use that value wisely, you can craft work that becomes meaningful, respected, and deeply your own. That is the path Newport offers. Not passion first, but mastery first. Not fantasy, but capital. Not waiting to be discovered, but becoming so good that the world has to notice.